we have scoured the internet and come up with the internet's most common questions about electrical safety audits.
Sounds
So,
good.
as an electrical safety audit specialist, you've been doing this for a while. I thought you'd be the
Yeah.
perfect person to answer these questions.
Yeah, I've been going on site and auditing people's facilities and people and programs for quite a while now. Actually training some of our new people how to do it now, and I'll get to the point of being able to just review their work instead of travel quite so much so I can focus on other things too. So
Yeah, you got
we're moving
hundreds.
on.
You got hundreds of hours in your belt doing safety audits.
Yeah.
So you're the queen of this. So let's get started with the first question. Just give me an overview of what electrical safety audit is.
Okay, so yeah, an electrical safety audit is kind of what it sounds like. It's an audit. It's a process where, like, for example, I would go on site and I would look at all the equipment and the PPE and the tools. I'd talk to the people and see how they're utilizing that PPE, the tools, as well as what they actually have to work on and how they go about working on things. And then I compare those answers and the findings to a safety program, a written document, the policy, procedures, things like that, and see where maybe things don't line up, or if they're doing it like the procedure says, but maybe it's not the best way. I point that out and see what we can do to remedy that. So really it's just a matter of looking at the program, policies, anything written, comparing it to what's happening in real life on the job every day, and figuring out where we need to improve. So that's what an electrical safety audit is.
Are audits, do they go over equipment or is it just people, procedures, and policies?
Mostly over the people. It's mostly over the like safe work practices and procedures and policies and equipment that they have to use. But, if I see something that's their electrical equipment that has a clear issue, a potential hazard just on its own, I'll definitely point that out too, because that's also a matter of safety in the workplace. So you can't ignore a piece of equipment that needs attention either.
Sure. So an audit can encompass some equipment
Right.
if you see it.
Right.
But mainly it's over the people and the behaviors and the procedures that affect the people.
Right.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So why is it important that I assume a manufacturer, anybody who has three-phase power, I know that's regarding Art Flash, but why is it important for companies to conduct electrical safety audit? Who are those people, first of all, that need an electrical safety audit?
Who? Any workplace.
Any workplace.
Any workplace that falls under the NFPA 70E would need to do electrical safety audits. In fact, in the 70E, in Article 110.5, there's a part about electrical safety programs, and subsection M is all about auditing, all the different things that you need to be auditing and how frequently. And so if you fall under the 70E umbrella, which is the vast majority of workplaces.
So give me an example. Gas station.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They need electrical safety training at some level?
They should. Yeah, anybody that's going to be going in and working on that, their employees should at least be aware of those hazards and not to go DIYing it whenever they're not qualified to some extent. And so, yes, even a place like that would need to have some form of an electrical safety audit, or they should audit their contractor, because usually they would contract out that work, and have the contractor employer provide results on their employees' qualifications, for example, or procedures or things like that. It would be a joint effort in that case.
So then a manufacturing plant?
Yep, same
That'd be
thing.
An obvious one.
It would just be more internal. Certainly still some contractor potential there as well, because a lot of people are contracting out their electrical work nowadays. And that's actually because they think that, it's easier. And it can be. You get people who are electricians and they do this every day and they've got, several different facilities in the area. And so they just focus on electrical and nothing else. That's fine, but it doesn't pass the buck of liability. So you should still be auditing your facility and your people and whoever it is that's working on your equipment to make sure that it's going to be done right and safely.
So are you saying that a small gas station or a small mom and pop shop, whatever that may be, they typically would outsource that to the electricians? So so they need to make sure that their electricians who they're outsourcing to is compliant in those areas.
Right.
Number one. But then for bigger manufacturers or brands who have internal W-2 employees, electricians, you're saying that they also need to be compliant.
Yes. So if you hire and you manage anybody that works on anything electrical system related, they should be audited annually, and your safety program should include all the things they need to know in order to do the job safely to the most recent standards, codes and standards, as well as your training programs need to be up to date. I mean, there's a lot involved with that. But certainly, whether you contract it out or have your own employees, those things need to be covered. If you contract out, you just need to make sure that it's getting done. If you hire them directly, you then have to make sure you do it.
Right. So with those two instances, mom and pop shop, large brand, anyone in between, why is an electrical safety audit important? Why should we do it? So you mentioned it goes over people, processes, and procedures, and some equipment here and there.
Yeah.
But still, why is it important? Why does a leader need to look at this and say, I need to get this done? Yes, because OSHA requires it, or whoever.
Right.
They might enforce it if they come by. The likelihood of that happening. But what's the real reason?
Well, it's twofold. So yes, it is also just to comply with,
check off that box.
Right. So do what 70E says, right? That's pretty straightforward. However,
which OSHA interprets the 70E as their standard.
Right. It's a recognized standard for electrical safety. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, it could be checking a box. That, that's somewhere to start. If that's the only reason, it's better than nothing. But the real reason that you would want to do these, the reason it's even in the 70E is because things change over time. And so if you had a good electrical safety program, on X year, and then 5-6 years later, you have new equipment or new employees or new processes.
Which is likely.
Yes.
Very likely.
And you haven't gone back and just made sure that everything in your program still applies to those new procedures or pieces of equipment or PPE that you purchase, then it's kind of useless. And it could result in there being a knowledge gap between management and workers, which, could lead to even bigger issues of, well, management and safety guy knows that we've got a program and it's trained, our people are trained over this program, but if it doesn't apply to what they're actually doing anymore, that's not going to be helpful. And it could lead to an incident, an accident, an injury, fatality, whatever it is. Or it could be that you've bought your PPE, right? And everything's been up to date with your documentation, everyone's gone through training, but you've never really looked at your PPE again. And their clothing is wearing thin, or their face shields are getting cracked, or whatever it may be. And then your PPE is useless and you don't even realize it because you're not auditing and making sure that what you have to protect your people is still effective.
So let's get into some of the specifics then. I like that. Okay. So by conducting electrical safety audit, it's identifying hazards.
Yes.
Regarding electrical incidents.
Potential risk.
So you just pointed out, if you conduct this electrical safety audit, you could identify that the PPE is worn out or incorrect.
Right.
Would that be one example of what an audit gets out?
Yeah.
Gets out.
It's identifying those potential gaps in your safety, hopefully before anything happens and ends up having someone.
So what's another example of how an audit can draw out those hazards and bring attention to them?
The biggest thing that I get out of my audits is my worker interviews. So I literally sit down with the people who are doing electrical work, and I have a list of questions, and that's just to get the conversation started. Because I want them.
That'd be pretty intimidating.
It can be. I sit down and I'm like, what's your name? What's your title? How long you been here? And then I stop. And I'm like, all right, those notes were just for me, because if I have a follow-up question, I need to know who to ask. But your answers are completely confidential. I'm the only one that knows that you're saying these things. And then we get to the real meat of what's happening at their facility. Maybe they won't rat themselves out, but they'll talk about how most of their coworkers don't really care about grabbing their PPE. Most of the workers just use a pen tester to verify absence of voltage instead of the actual triple test that you're supposed to do. And so if that's the culture that has been hidden from management, because that can happen, and the safety guy walks around and everyone puts on their safety glasses real quick, that's not helpful in the long term, right? And so being able to expose that potential complacency or even lack of understanding. Another part of my interviews would be going through some basic things like, can you explain to me how to take a voltage measurement? Or can you explain to me how you put your gloves on? Or even show me if they have it. I had a gentleman put on his leather gloves and then the rubber gloves over the top, which is opposite of the way you're supposed to do it. And I asked him why, and he's like, well, and he gave me what seemed like a logical reason at the time. And then I explained to him why it should be the other way. And he was like, oh, I've never heard that. And I'm sitting there looking at my paperwork saying that he sat through an electrical safety training before. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, we need to audit their training program now because clearly it didn't cover this well enough. So these worker interviews are where I get the meat of where they are safety-wise.
You're assessing the worker.
Right.
Their knowledge.
Yes.
And how they apply their knowledge, if there's any knowledge at all. Apparently this gentleman went through training, and of course we can all doze off on these types of trainings.
Happens,
It's the truth. So you're assessing the worker and their knowledge.
So not only all the things that you need for compliance purposes, having the training done, having the certificates made, or having this policy. That might be the easy part,
a black and white.
Just going through and just checking those boxes or not. That's what you are doing or not. But knowing that step further on whether or not a worker can actually implement what you're saying you need to do is another huge part of those audits.
So really good things that an audit will draw out, making sure your team is up to date, because with PPE and all the other boxes are checked off. Do you have a training program?
Yeah.
For electrical, are all these other things checked off the box? But that's what you just told me is the most important, really, is like assessing the worker, because at the end of the day, their actions and behavior determines whether or not disaster is more likely to strike,
right,
or not, right?
Right.
So one would say, wow, if I don't do an electrical safety audit, I'm at major risk for disaster striking, which could cost me a lot of money.
Right.
What is the true risk of disaster striking if an audit is not completed, and how much money could it cost, and has it cost companies before? I mean, it's a massive spectrum, I believe, but what's the potential? Are we talking $1,000, $2,000? Are we talking like hundreds of thousands, or even $1 million?
Yeah, no, it's definitely the upper end there, because you're not just talking about, somebody complaining about an issue and you have to replace a piece of PPE, right? That can get expensive, and people don't want to invest in PPE sometimes because of the cost. They look at, a jacket or face shield or something and think, why is that a couple $100 or more? Right. They don't get it, which is fine. That goes into education. And I hope that we can answer those questions at another podcast too. But basically, if somebody gets hurt, it's all the medical costs, workers' comp, time off work that it could turn into. Plus, depending on what the incident is, the electrical system, parts of that could have to be replaced. And that's way more expensive than investing in, regular audits or the right training or things like that.
So you're just doing your best to mitigate or prevent something from happening in the future.
Yes. My whole goal during those audits would just be simply to bring to light any potential gaps, any potential areas that are left open to where something could go wrong, and provide some recommendations on how to fill that or fix that.
Because you never know what could happen. I mean, if you didn't, educate that gentleman, who knows what else he doesn't know?
Absolutely.
And you didn't even catch it.
Absolutely.
During that whole time. And he can be the one that brings disaster straight to your facility or your workplace. And it affects everyone and makes life-altering destructions and workers' comp claims and just equipment damage, and it could be a big deal.
Absolutely. And that's actually why, in my opinion, why worker audits are actually supposed to be done on an annual basis.
I see. And that's included within the electrical safety audit.
It can be, yeah.
It can be.
It certainly can be. Whereas your documentation and all your training records and stuff is every 3 years. And that's mostly to keep up to date with the 70E updates, because they come out with a new edition with improvements every 3 years. But the workers themselves should be audited every year. to make sure that they're retaining the right information to do the job.
So that's my next question. Point it to me straight. How often should an electrical safety audit be conducted?
Minimum every 3 years. The worker safe work practices once a year.
And why is that?
Or if something changes in your facility.
Why is that?
Again, because there's a new edition of the 70E every 3 years that has potentially different work practices that are now required, or requirements along those lines. And so you need to adapt and adjust to those and make sure that you're updated. Or it could just simply be to circle back and check on an annual basis for the workers, like I said, to see if they're retaining their knowledge. Because
3 years
let's
is
be
a long
real.
time.
Yeah.
A year is a long time.
A year is a long time. I know the training requirement says, minimum every 3 years or whenever something changes, but we have a lot of clients that prefer to do an annual refresher.
Makes the most sense, honestly.
It does, because otherwise you're not talking about electrical safety enough.
So 3 years, nah, every year.
Every year is better, yes.
Yeah. So who should perform an audit then? What does that look like? Can I perform an audit?
Well,
should you? Obviously, but who can perform an electrical safety audit? What are their qualifications? And then what does OSHA or the NFPA 70E say?
Unfortunately, there's not a great amount of guidelines on who can or should do an electrical safety audit. They just say that it should be done. But logic says they should be done by someone who is knowledgeable in that subject so that it's actually useful, actually beneficial.
So if I was giving the audit, you probably wouldn't give much credibility or confidence in myself.
It would be a Google search audit.
It would be a Google search. And so you pay for what you get for.
Right. And I know a lot of companies
you get what you pay for. And,
yes.
And I said that backwards, but it's true. You're going to pay me $1,000, $500. You're going to get what you pay for, which is Google answers, and apparently you check it off the box.
Right.
But if you pay Caitlyn way more, you're going to get exactly what you pay for, which is quality, thorough, detailed audit work.
Yes, that's the thing. It is an investment, but an investment in safety is always proven to be cheaper in the long run than ever having an accident.
Yeah, absolutely. Investing a couple more dollars in safety will make you more money.
Right.
And another reason, go ahead.
I was going to say the type of people like myself, just to kind of describe that, typically we see those with an electrical engineering background or a lot of years experience as an electrician, who then either one has turned towards the safety field and focused on electrical safety. Maybe it's because they started doing arc flash studies or they started venturing into the training sector. Whatever it is, they've really focused and dived deep into the NFPA 70E and the subpart S of 1910 of OSHA's regulations.
Do we have to be careful, not just, some people might be thinking, well, I'll just go find the nearest electrician and just have him do it for me. Do we need to be careful about that, or are they qualified enough?
I would be hesitant to just say anybody, because again,
any electrician, just grab them off the street. Hey, I need electrical safety audit.
No, I definitely wouldn't do that.
Works.
No, in fact, my brother and I have talked about this. He's an electrician, and going through his trade school experience, the only time they ever really even heard about the NFPA 70E or the need for all of these different safety procedures and work practices was whenever I went to his company's location to give a training.
I see. So you heard it first. Do not hire just an electrician right off the
It's
street.
somebody who maybe has that experience and background, but then shifted in their career to focus on something more specific to this.
On safety too.
Right. And then there's also certifications now that really do help kind of vet and do a little bit of background check, so to speak, as far as qualifications go. So like the NFPA's CESCP. So whenever I went through that, I had to prove that I had my electrical engineering degree and I had so many years experience in this work specifically, not just as an electrical engineer, but working with electrical safety. And then also so many hours learning about the 70E through different, programs and stuff. I couldn't, even though I was teaching it, they couldn't count all those hours as you still have to learn from other people too. And so it was a very diverse qualifications for me to even be able to apply. And then for the electricians, same thing. They had to be, journeyman or master electricians with so many years experience, so much training, or a general safety professional, I think it was like 10 plus years experience. And again, focused on electrical safety. So that's NFPA's standard for, and the CESCP, what it stands for is Certified Electrical Safety Compliance Professional. So it's kind of right there in the name, electrical safety compliance professional. They can do audits.
There you go. So make sure you hire the right person, not just anyone off the street. So we talked about the benefits, but how does the one benefit I wanted to mention and talk to you about is the fact that the workers have more confidence in what the heck they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yes, you're trying to prevent future costs from happening and hazards and disaster, which could cost you a lot of money. But I think at the same time, and tell me if I'm wrong, you're boosting the workers' confidence. You're helping them be more productive, utilizing the equipment and procedures that apparently a safety leader had spent thousands of hours on. It's just pushing them in the right direction to make sure that they continue work in a safe environment, in a safe way, which I would assume makes the company more money.
Well, yeah, because if you have more confidence in what you're doing and you approach a task, it's not going to take you as long. Well,
in certain situations,
you don't want to go over the hump of that and get into compliance, but there's this sweet spot of you're confident, you know what you're doing. You don't have to stop and second guess yourself every second and be worried. You just have that rigorous self-discipline and healthy respect for what you're about to do, but you know how to handle it and how to do it the right way. So you can do it.
And I would argue all day that helps workers get work done faster.
Absolutely.
Because heck, your culture might even change, because just imagine your workers inside their head and subconscious thinking, I don't want to go to this work again. I'm trying to find another job because it's so unsafe, or you don't even know what they're thinking about.
Well,
and that could delay productivity right there in itself, that small little
absolutely thought. Because there could be a disconnect between the leadership and management and their workers.
Often is.
There is. You know, there have been several times I go on site and I start an audit and I feel the tension. You know, the safety guy or gal is like really happy I'm there and she's introducing me around, or he's telling me, you know, this is what we do and this is going to be so great and here's all our documents. You know?
Then guess what?
And then I sit down with the guys and they're electricians.
Yep.
And
they're not very
What
happy.
am I doing here?
Yeah, well, why am I here?
Why am I here?
This is torture.
This doesn't seem like a good use of my time, you know? And then we start talking and I realize it's because they don't see the importance of it. They don't realize what it is that they're doing, and why management's bringing someone like me in to poke holes in everything they're working on.
So if you do your job right too, you are benefiting in another way, yet another cost saving and production way to help the company make more money, because you're going in there and you're trying to be the third party, objective source of truth to come in and help glue those two teams together. And that is value in itself. That's a lot of money saved and earned. If you can, in that situation, many more, if you have a team like that, you come in and help the electrician not be so, down and out about the things, and make the safety leader more connected to the team and vice versa, right? You're coming in there and you could be, if you hire the right one, which Caitlyn is the right one and many of our other team members at Herzig, you can be that glue.
It certainly can be. And it's been amazing to see, from the time I go on site to do the audits and the worker interviews, and then typically there's like an update of the program, because 70E changes. And then I tend to go back and give a training on what things they should have improved, as well as the updates of their program, and to give a training. And the same people that I did the worker interview versus trained, it's like their attitudes have completely changed. Their eyes are opened basically to the fact that this is not just about checking a box. This is about me. This is about me going home safely to my friends, to my family. This is about my buddy here who I've been training for the last, 6 months, and we've gotten really close. I may be getting close to retirement, but now he's going to be able to live a long life and get to my point and retire too. It's not just about, some safety guy that wanted to check a box.
Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, you do all this stuff. You interview the workers, you look over some equipment, PPE, check, non-check, circle this, big hazard here. At the end of the day, what does the client get? What do you give them that helps them take action?
A report.
A report.
Yes, we engineers love our reports.
And that report shows what?
So basically, as I'm going around and looking at the equipment or the PPE, I'm taking pictures of everything that I'm allowed to, right? And I put these pictures in the report and point to the things that they're doing well. If they have their rubber gloves and they've got it tested every 6 months as you're supposed to.
You're not just downing on everybody.
No.
You're like,
I point out the good things too. I'm like, yes, keep doing this. That's right. But then I do point out the parts that are lacking or definitely could have room for improvement. And even the ones that are like, yes, technically you're compliant. However, I see a potential hazard still, so why don't you try this? And that has happened too. Sometimes they're really good at checking a box, and I've been on site at one place multiple times because they know that this needs to be done every 3 years. And, we've gone back multiple times and they've checked the box so many times that they didn't even realize that this new kind of angle to what they were working on. And it's hard to describe, but left their workers potentially unsure of what to handle in that area safely.
I can imagine how getting a workplace safety audit, electrical workplace safety audit like this just calms the mind for the safety leader in the company. Probably to even help me sleep safer at night, just to know that some outside source has come in and identified these hazards. Yes, the things that we're doing well. Yep. But the things that really could bring disaster right up to your doorstep.
Sure.
Like that would help me sleep at night.
Not just identify it, but also provide guidance on how to fix it.
There we go.
Because that's kind of the hardest part. Because oftentimes our audits start with, we know we have issues in this and this and this and this area. And I'm like, okay.
So how do you fix it?
How do you fix it? That's what we need to talk about.
So not only, that's so great. Well, thanks so much for chatting with me today about electrical safety audits. If you'd like one done, you can go to herzigengineering.com/intro, book a 7-minute safety intro with us and click that electrical safety audit check box. And we'd be more than happy to do everything we've just discussed here for your facility, whether it's a small mom and pop shop, and maybe you're not even sure that this thing's required for you. You can always book that intro and we'll be able to tell you. And if, of course, you're a big food manufacturing industry, we've worked with thousands of safety specialists and engineers at these massive companies that need these services, and not only check off that little box at OSHA, but to truly keep their workers safe and help them go home to their families. So
absolutely.
Thanks so much, Caitlyn.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for visiting our YouTube channel. Click here to watch another one of our videos. Click here to subscribe to our channel, or go to herzigengineering.com/intro, where you can book a 7-minute electrical safety introduction where we can answer any of your questions about electricity, energy, or the workplace to help you not only stay compliant, but motivate your team to do higher levels of work, to build your safety culture, and to ultimately reduce costs so everyone can go home safely.